It doesn't look like I'm unfortunately going to be able to have the CPU horsepower to do that. The whole broadcast, the last 2.5 hours, was just a slideshow, really. You can hear the audio okay, but not much else. So I'm going to start over, both the recording and the presentation, and I think we're going to go until we get out of the column and end up in the Reef of the Fallen Worlds. I expect it'll be about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. So tuck in, and if you notice any problems during the stream or anything like that, do feel free to let me know in the chat, and I'll see what I can do. It seems to be working now, however. So let's get started with this wonderful game. We're going to start out as a male.
Your mind wakes in darkness. Aching cold sets into an unfamiliar body. A distant howling surrounds you, louder with each passing second. Insistent and invisible hands slap and tear at the membrane that protects you. Your first emotion is an involuntary and formless panic. You feel you have forgotten something important. As if it once meant the world to you, but the details slip away as you grasp at them. You force your eyes open.
I have the first choice of the game. We're falling in midair, and we can either look at our own body, or we can look at the world around us. I think we're going to have plenty of opportunity to see what we ourselves look like later on, but if we don't look around, we might not get that opportunity later. So let's look around.
A white-pink fleshy cocoon surrounds you. Even as you look, a minor rent in its side tears open, and the howling wind forces its way inside. The cocoon rips away, gone before you can grab it, spinning you into a dizzying tumble. You are falling, the world many kilometers beneath you. You catch a glimpse of a curved horizon, and also the ground beneath you that is approaching deceptively quickly. Above you, a small moon is slowly collapsing in upon itself. A corona of acid green and black energy playing around its edges.
Now, I just want to double check before we go any further that my custom graphics settings have loaded for this. I've used a modifier called Reshade, which some of you may have heard of, to enhance the game's graphics a bit. Yes, looks like it's been loaded there. Good. Let's continue.
The wind buffets you and burns your eyes, but you don't need to see the details of the faraway ground to know you're in serious trouble. You won't survive a fall from this stratospheric height. A part of your frantic mind babbles that technically you probably fell from a thermospheric height. You struggle to stay focused as the ground rushes toward you.
So talk about starting in media res, right? You've got a big, expansive world. How do you start? You've got these multi-layered characters, you've got this long backstory, you've got this game setting that's been under development for years. It's both a traditional tabletop RPG, that was released a few years ago by Monte Cook, and now you finally got, as of today, the release of the full game itself. Well, they just drop you out of the sky, directly into the game settings with no memory of where you've been before. And while amnesia is used as a common conceit in gaming, it's a common conceit, I think, for a reason. It's quite a good one. This to me is a hallmark of many of the attributes of the game. It's willing to take risks, it has some demonstrated skill, and it's not going to hold your hand. And we'll see some more examples of that later. But now we have another choice. We can look at the horizon from where we're falling, we can flatten out to try and catch the wind, to try and judge how far it is to the ground, or we can dive towards the ground. This is one of the very first choices that you encounter, of course, and I can tell you, if you just sort of give up and pick the obviously stupid choice here, you will die. It will kill you. It will knock you right back to the screen as well. You won't even go back to a place called the Calm that we'll discover later. So we're not going to go with number 4. Let's try and flatten out to catch the wind.
Instinctively, you spread your arms and legs, and they respond sluggishly. You stop tumbling head over heels. Though you are still spinning laterally, that motion has calmed as well, and you have space to assess your situation, and perhaps to understand the predicament and the body in which you find yourself. Below you, you see a large landmass. A massive ocean dominates the rest of the visible globe, dotted here and there with island chains. Small moons, unusual structures, and strange machines rush past you in glittering profusion as you plummet toward the ground.
I mean, I think it already should be clear the caliber of writing that we're dealing with in this game. The glittering profusions of strange machines rushing past you below. I want to take a moment to appreciate it because the thing that really grabbed me about this game more than anything is the quality of the writing. I mean, some of you may have been wondering, and I'm sure are wondering, is this game going to be as good as Planescape Torment? I played through the beta, which takes you all the way to the end of Sega's Cliffs. It's about maybe 4 or 5 hours of gameplay. It definitely was as good as Planescape Torment. It was better in some ways, it being a more modern game. The writing is every bit as good, which is to say, this is some of the best. I'm prepared to say in fiction. I mean, if a book was written this well, it would be a very good book, at least by my standard, and the standard is often quite low when it comes to writing and gaming, but not here. So by spreading ourselves out, we got an opportunity not to really arrest our fall, that's impossible, but at least it gave us a little bit of time. We can either study the world, we can take this opportunity now to look at ourselves, or we can try and remember what happened. I have a feeling we're not going to have the opportunity to try and remember what happened in this specific instance later, or if we do, there'll be pieces of the information that we won't get if we don't take advantage of it now. So as silly as it may seem, I'm going to go mission number 3. Try and remember what happened.
It's hazy. You were in a tall passageway, its sides slicked with dew, the air warm and moist, as if you were caught in the breath of a giant organism. You remember fleeing in fear and exhilaration, laughing through the terror. What was it that pursued you?
I have a feeling we're going to find out soon.
Something ancient and cold, its coiling power the promise of oblivion. Its shadowed tendrils struck at you, and the walls where they landed were torn apart utterly, destroyed beyond any hope of repair. You leapt into a membranous cocoon and fell from the station, the moon, and then you were empty. But who were you? What was that creature? A word surfaces in your thoughts, and you seize it before it vanishes. Sorrow. The world fills your sight. You're about to hit.
So, applying the same logic as before, let's try and remember the sorrow.
It hurts your mind to recall, but you push past it, a creature of the forgotten world seeking you out across the centuries. But it's not you it seeks, is it? It sought the man whose memories you shuffle through now, and you realize suddenly that you are not him. You were... who? Who were you?
Let's continue to search through these memories.
If you somehow manage to sidestep everything you know about anatomy, physics, and death, and you are surprised to realize that you do know something about them, and you survive this fall, you suspect that you might be able to reawaken a dormant strength you sense inside you. But who could possibly survive a fall from this height? You remember reaching an escape tube, and you remember being struck by a tendril of force, and then the fall. The fall. You open your eyes in time to see a riot of color around you, your descent barely slowed, and then agony flares throughout your body as a crunching impact destroys you. The last thing you hear is a rapidly cycling whine of energy, and then...
I love this. You open your eyes in time to see a riot of color around you. Riot of color, so evocative, so perfectly captures what it is that your character is experiencing. Steal this. Like, seriously, if you're a writer, use that phrase. Best writers are thieves. It's a well-known fact.
Darkness.
So we find ourselves in a fetal position. And our character is not so much... You can see that he has a distinct physical appearance already. He's somewhat shrouded, which might strike you as sort of like the beginnings of Dark Souls 2, where your character's appearance was concealed because you hadn't fully decided what your character was going to look like yet. I can tell you that's not the case here. We have sort of the universal gaming symbol for the direction we should move. We have a point of light falling from the roof here. And while we can move, there's really no room for us to actually move. The only thing we can do is really interact with this obsidian basin. So Let's take a look. Oh! We appear to be bugged. I apologize for that, folks. It's not the case that we have too little room to move, it's that we can't interact with anything. So I am going to go ahead and restart the game. I might as well quick save. I won't let me do that either. If I tab out, will that work? Ah! Good! Okay, we didn't need to reload and we can move around now. So if I come into the light, you can see that our character, while it is dark in here, this is not a deliberate attempt to conceal our character's appearance because it's character creation. That is actually what we look like as a male cast-off. Let's take a look at the Obsidian Basin. Jumbled thoughts cloud your head as you study the empty bowl before you. Drops of liquid fall from the ceiling, splattering on the ground next to the bowl. The light from every drop is reflected in the bowl's rounded hollow, as if it hungers for that light and needs to be filled. Yet the bowl remains dry. Another drop falls from the ceiling and splashes across the pylons, wasted. So of course, as among the first things we experience in the game, they're really beating you over the head with the suggestions of what to do. There's not an awful lot of choice yet, but that's going to change soon enough. You can also get the sense of, if you do not read these descriptions, how quickly you might get confused as to what it is you're supposed to do. So we can examine the bowl, and I see no reason not to. We might as well learn a little bit more about the task that's before us. You trace your fingers over the slippery, overlapping scales that spiral up from the bottom of the bowl. The sharp-toothed rim plucks at your skin, so it has sharp edges. It's going to be tricky to move this bowl without slicing your fingers on the edge. You might have to put some effort into it. Reflected light streaks across the surface of the bowl as another droplet falls from the ceiling. So, we know what we have to do, we just have to be careful doing it. So let's apply our might statistic. You can see all of our statistics are equal right now. Might, speed, and intellect are all at 5. So let's use our might to carefully move the bowl beneath the liquid. And, let's apply some effort. So by spending 2 points of might, going from 5 available to 3, we increase our odds of success to 100%. And surely enough, we carefully take hold of the bowl, avoiding the teeth and the serrated rim. With a deep breath, we move it over to the glowing pool of fallen light. The bowl slides over and it catches the light. Let's see what happens. There's a chime, a harmony indicating that we've done something right. Drop by drop, the bowl fills, ripples spreading over the blurred outline of your reflection. A pale blue luminescence stretches into the corners of the room. A clear radiance spills across the segmented floor, washing away the nearest shadows, and pouring into your mind, melting the ragged edges of your fragmented thoughts. You are not whole, not yet, but you have begun to heal from the damage done in your long fall. A voice calls out from somewhere high above, beyond the reaches of the spreading light. Hello? Are you still alive down there? We're up here. Build a path up to us, and be careful. So, the landscape has transformed as a result of moving the bowl into here. I'm just curious to see if there's anything else to learn from this. The rippling surface of the bowl shines with its own light. I don't think we're going to overturn it. It's clear to pass for us, so let's leave it alone. But you can see the very landscape itself has transformed as part of our choices, and this is the way the game indicates to you that this is not just going to be the case here, that in this game, your choices matter, and they'll shape the world around you. Let's continue to the next objective. As soon as you touch the orb, a memory floods your mind. You stand in front of a rusted door. The air is humid and dank. You've had a moment's respite from this waterlogged hell, a bubble of stale air, your resting point. You've breathed water before, and you've lived decades beneath the waves, but this body's an air breather, and the constant pressure has been crushing you ever so subtly. Worse, your companion's mind seems to be wandering from the task at hand. He's a genius with machines, as you well know, but now he seems distracted. The device in his hands is covered in knobs, wires, and antenna. He believes he can get the two of you through the corroded door, but he's merely staring at it. Perhaps he's lost faith in his invention, but that is hardly your concern. The mission cannot be delayed. It must proceed. That was the reason for this urgency. Your own character's selfishness? Is it the importance of the mission itself? Well, maybe if we're lucky we'll find out later. But we have a choice. We can either deceive him, threaten him, or cast a spell to do it ourselves. Now, it's not going to be major spoilers or anything to tell you that I'm going to be vectoring for creating a nano. And that's sort of the this world's version of a mage. So, since our choice before with the bowl shaped the world around us, let's use the same logic here and cast a spell to fix the device ourselves. You mumble a few words, drawing power from the air around you until a solution appears in your mind. You snatch the device from his hands, rewire it, and shove it back at him. "Oh," he says, examining your work. "Sorry, I was trying to improve the thing." He waves the device at the door, and the stale air of your bubble freshens as the door swings open. A dark hallway lies beyond, a passage that links the water-bordered cells and the aquatic viewing areas. What you seek lies there. Moments later, you're underwater again, your hands closing around a strange yet familiar artifact. You need it to complete something. It hovers above a pedestal, rotating in the dark water. An electric current runs through your fingers as your hand crosses the vertical plane of the pedestal, and an iridescent field coalesces so fast that the wave of pressure dazes you for a moment. The rising pulse of a sonar alarm ripples through the water. The guards won't be far behind. And the Foley in the background, that sound effect, it's a nice touch. Sort of brings the memory that we're experiencing to life. As you can, of course, already tell, In Exile was not able to voice everything that you experience, or even most of the text that you'll see in this game. That's what I'm here for. But the sound effect is better than nothing, and it's good. It helps a lot. So we can either run and come back for it. It sounded like before the mission was fairly important, though. We could disable the sonar pulse, although it's already been activated, and it's anybody's guess as to whether or not suddenly turning it off would further raise suspicion or help us. Or we could use a device to stop them. One of the ciphers in our belt. Let's use a device. You run urgent fingers over the devices fastened to your waist, fog rising in your mind. A few can be used against the guards, but will also turn your skin to synthesteel, or the surrounding water to boiling wax. Hardly ideal. So we have a tool belt full of possible items, but not all of them are ideal for the situation, even those that might stop the guards. Finally, you find a small silver sphere. Setting the sphere in place, you kick desperately for the safety of a nearby alcove. The sphere whirls and unfolds into a spiraling vortex. The sphere, at its center, speaks a few polite words in an ancient language, then begins draining the surrounding water into itself with alarming speed. The approaching guards shout, then scream as they do, and are sucked into the whirlpool and ripped to pieces. You allow yourself a fleeting smile, but are all too aware that more alarms are going off in the distance. Perhaps we're merely self-satisfied with our own cleverness, but I think this betrays a detail about not just the memory that we're experiencing, but the person we were when we experienced it. The memory begins to fade, as if you were being drawn backward through a tunnel, and you hear more pylons rising from the pit. Something is wrong. The events within the orb have settled into that gap in your mind, but the edges of it are rough, as though the memory itself is not truly yours. There's something else. A gust of sour air is pulling at you like a predator inhaling the scent of prey at the far end of a dark, whispering field. Once again, the landscape transforms. Now, you'll notice that there are hexagons here. The game itself is not based around the movement of hexagons. It's grid-based, I believe. I think that the display here is no accident, however. It is a physical representation of what the character is now experiencing. We don't know who we are. We don't know where we've come from, though we're slowly starting to remember, although there's an indication that these memories don't necessarily belong to us. I think the hexagons and the simple geometric shapes are about conveying the simplicity of the reality we're trying to build within ourselves. geometric simply because those are the things that contain the least amount of information. So, let's move up. Before we've been chasing these spheres of light, each to discover which one of our next objectives might be, and I think we can't actually get back to the bowl now. The surface that surrounds it is in flux. We'd never be able to walk over that. But there are other things that we can do simply besides proceeding to the sphere. We can examine what's around us, for example. So the rolling hexagons are reflected in the mirror over here. And this seems to be an object of some significance, so let's take a look. It says, this mirror looks strange, as though what you see in it is real, and you're the reflection. We can also examine these 3 doors, and I don't know if this is intentional, but it certainly reminds me of the art style of Planescape Torment. I don't know whether this is simply a ham-fisted attempt at referencing a previous game, though generally the way that this game references Planescape Torment is very ideal, and I'll explain more about what I mean by that later. I have a sneaking suspicion, though, that although the descriptions of these doors are vague now, they may become more purposeful later. It being the opening sequence of a game that's shrouded in mystery, it's certainly the habit of most RPGs of this type to bookend, to put things that are confusing now so that when you beat the game and play the second time, suddenly this first part of the game has replayability, it has a new experience and new depth to it. I certainly expect that will be the case, but I don't know for sure. So let's take a look at these doors. No sign or symbol tells you what might be behind this enormous door. A dull chill radiates from its bronze segmented surface, and the thick metal wheel seems frozen into place. This other door, the light around the door's frame dims and flares like a roaring fire in a high wind. Finally, countless scratches and wounds mar the surface of this door. Someone made a great effort to get inside, to no avail. So, filled with foreboding, and again, we're not really sure what it means, but I have an expectation that we'll discover a little bit more about what it means at a later date, perhaps much later. Let's proceed. You stand beside a woman on a verdant crag. Beneath the 2 of you is a broad plateau towering above the overgrowth far below. Strange machines have been built into the cliffside, presumably for reconnaissance or defense. A metallic disc gleams from the center of the plateau. Your self-aware, humanoid machines drill into the base of the cliffs below. If you were looking for a sanctuary, and you were, desperately, this seems like the right place. I don't know about this, the woman says, her voice flat, neutral. Her face is turned away from you. What makes this place any more secure than the other ones we found? And once again, we have a choice. We can distract her, we can charm her, or we can sort of persuade her with the wisdom of our superior intellect. Now, it's quite clear from our choices thus far that our choices shape the place itself, but this is a personal decision, and on the possibility that our decisions might shape who we are, who we're becoming. I want to use my superior intellect, so let's try option number 3. A slight chill enters the air as you describe the potential power of the metallic disc below and the sealed vaults beneath it. She nods. So that's what your servitor machines are doing down there? You've already chosen this as the site, haven't you? She waits for your affirmation and says, "All right, I'm convinced." The 2 of you sketch your plans for the sanctuary, drawing schematics and architectural diagrams. Then you descend onto the plateau to examine the open ground. The woman suggests having one of the servitors build a shelter for your time here. You try to draw one of the constructs away from its task, but doesn't respond to your voice. When you lay a hand on its shoulder to reinforce your command, it whirls and strikes you across the face with inhuman speed. It turns back to its task, ignoring you. Your companion helps you rise, laughter in her eyes. It seems your construct here has other ideas. What's the matter with it? So, I think it's probably clear to some of the more seasoned RPG players out there, especially those of you who have played Infinity Engine era games, that this may just be, sort of proxy for character creation, right? It's the beginning, you're remembering old memories, and you're making decisions that have one of 3 distinct possible branches, each of which seem to correspond to your statistics. Of course, that is part of what you're doing now, But I think it's also more than that. This memory in particular I can tell you you will return to later, and I'd like to believe that all of the memories that you're discovering now will later on have increased significance, at the very least revisit them, discover new details, that kind of thing. It's one of the attributes of a good game, also a good movie in particular, where you have a limited amount of time to tell a story, that many things are being accomplished and done at once. It helps you with repeat viewings, it gives you more to digest with each view, and I've seen this beginning, I want to say about at least probably 5 times by now. Um, but also, it's not one of those things that's necessarily the attribute of a good piece of entertainment in itself, just doing lots of things at once, but it is a demonstration of skill. A good writer is able to juggle lots of competing concerns at once, gameplay concerns in this case, with narrative ones, and still satisfy both of those things. To still deliver a good gameplay experience that does the necessary things that a game needs to do, while still delivering an interesting plot to go with it. It's a little confusing now, but for now we only really have to decide what to do. We can sort of brute force it. We can use a Numenera integrate into the construct's body to overwhelm its behavior malfunction. We can examine it for mechanical faults, or we can look for a deeper solution. Perhaps it's an effect of the metallic disc itself. So, applying the same logic as before, let's go with number 3. And I think you'll probably all notice that the order of these choices mirrors the order of your statistics. A mist falls onto the plateau as you wrap a fiber-shielding mesh around the construct's skull. The mesh powers up, protecting the construct's mind from any trans-dimensional emissions that might be in the area. Taking a deep breath, you repeat your command. Acknowledged. It obediently trundles to the site of your new shelter. The image freezes, then fades, and you feel the memory filling the gap in your mind, block by jagged block. Mirroring, of course, the transformations in the environment that surrounds us. You stagger, clutching your head. Reclaiming your memories hurts. And once more, there's something else. Hairs lift one by one on the back of your neck. Something beyond this room can sense what you're doing, and is hunting you. Not good. Would explain the urgency of the voice that was calling up before. The environment itself doesn't seem all that dangerous to us, particularly because no matter what we choose, it will forge a path forward. But something is hunting us. Well, let's proceed. A vision of a city springs up around you, your city, in flames and under attack. Her defenders have fought and died all day, and still the attackers keep coming. They fight as if your destruction were demanded of them. They care nothing for mercy, surrender, or plunder. What they want is blood. But you have brought a canine companion to the top of the tower. She has seen the way to stop the invaders. You need to get her to safety, and you need to rally your defenders. This memory in particular, I can tell you, without spoiling anything, that we will definitely be able to flesh out more later. But even as you turn towards the door of the tower, 2 of the attackers descend from a hovering machine. You don't have time to strike at them before they land. One is brutishly large, his weapon a vibrating axe. The other is slim, sheathed in glassy armor, and holding a hilt with a sizzling, invisible blade. Your companion backs away. She's too young to help. Your enemies advance single file, confined by the parapet. This companion, I think also, will return to a little bit later. She may be someone for whom our progenitor thought was special, worth capturing, maybe even to the point of immortalizing and preserving her identity. But I'm not sure as to that connection. We'll discover more about it later. We can either trade blows with the giant, we can duck under a swing, or we can fight defensively and figure out who presents the greater threat. Once again, we're going to take the intellectual option. The memory seems clear. The giant is menacing, it's true, but the invisible blade of his companion is more worrisome still. Incidentally, I should say, we've been rewarded 3 times in a row for this, and though it's true you can proceed in this part of the game no matter what you choose, the same is not true for the duration of the game. It's not true while you're falling in the air at the very beginning, and it's not going to be true afterwards. This game seems to reward careful consideration. It's been my experience so far, anyways. So, the energy field that flickers and wavers around it suggests that she can carve matter at the molecular level, tearing pieces of her target into nothingness. If you're to save yourself, your best bet is to tackle her first. She's stuck behind the giant, waiting for her turn to attack you, unable to bring her weapon to bear, until he is out of the way. But it's clear that she expects him to handle you, and her eyes rove behind you, her focus on your ward. She's certainly not expecting you to dive between the giant's legs and come up inside her guard. She can't bring her blade to bear in time, and you drive your dagger up under her chin. You catch her before her deadly blade drops onto you, and spin her around. The weapon slashes into the giant, and he topples, bisected. The immediate threat ended. You focus on finding a way back to your allies. You open the tower door and rush down the stairs. The door at the base of the stairs is slightly cracked, opening just a bit into the hall, and you hear more of the enemy soldiers beyond. So we can either hurl ourselves against the door and knock them to the ground, bowling through them. It's risky, but it could work. We can crack the door open to sneak past them, or we can charge through them, counting on our own defenses to protect you. I think perhaps the patternicity of the previous choices might mislead us a little bit. The third option in particular, though it's the beginning and may work, doesn't strike me as a very smart decision. Hurling ourselves against the door, knocking them to the ground, like I said, could work, or it could backfire. Then again, sneaking may not work either, so we have a difficult choice here, but I think of the three, my impression at least, is that going about this stealthily has the highest chance of succeeding. We'll see. Let's go with number 2. You press yourself against the gleaming door, easing it open, and your breath catches in your throat as it squeaks quietly, the sound like a bell in your memory. You pause, but the soldiers in the hall continue to talk. You push again, squeeze yourself through the narrow opening, and creep down the blood-stained hall. The memory begins to fade, and you find yourself back in your own body. Your temples throb with the racing force of your heartbeat, and the reclaimed memories blaze within you, like a bonfire on a mountain peak, visible to every predator for kilometers around. Well, that's not good. We do have a predator. A tremor rocks the floor beneath you, as though a massive fist has struck the room itself. Swaying on your feet, you see frantic movement within the borders of a mirror at the edge of the room. So the path is now clear to the mirror we passed by earlier, and our path seems to be leading directly through it. Let's take a look. The border of this mirror is lavishly decorated with a dizzying number of interlocked symbols. Daggers, masks, paintbrushes, amulets, and more. But that's nothing compared to what you see in the glass. You see a vast crowd of people. Hold on a sec, it looks like the the encoding is overloaded again. That's unfortunate. 29 frames per second. It's back up to 30 now. So I think I'm not going to worry about it, but once again, if any of you are watching and you notice a problem, do let me know. I want you guys to enjoy this experience as much live as later in the recording. So, we see a vast crowd of people, exact doppelgangers of you, shoving, arguing with, and fighting each other. Most are drab imitations of you, but a precious few are vivid and pull at your attention. Each of them bears an intricate pentagonal tattoo on their head. We'll learn a little bit more about what that pentagonal tattoo means, but for now, notice that all of them have one. In their eyes, their actions, you see the memories you discovered within the orbs, and the choices you made shining like distant stars. Your hand twitches at your side, as though some of the bright doppelgangers ignore you. An even smaller number immediately turn to you, waiting for you to choose them and learn what you might become. A rumble shakes the room, and a slow vibration spreads from the darkness below, rippling towards the ceiling. We can point at the doppelganger with the clever eyes, we can point at the intelligent doppelganger with the furrowed brow, or we can point at the one with the mystical symbol on its brow. This choice is a little opaque, a little bit like the previous one. It's not entirely clear what this is going to do. And in fact, having been through this a few times myself, it's not entirely clear to me it's clear that these describe descriptors that your character could have, but it also seems to be involved with choosing your class, although perhaps your class is involved as the aggregate of all the previous choices. Of course, you may not even be aware of what I mean when I say a descriptor. So, for now, let's point at the doppelganger with the clever eyes. The doppelganger makes its way over to you. It's about to speak when a thuggish figure charges out of the crowd and shakes his knife in the doppelganger's face. Speaking in your voice, the doppelganger raises a calming hand, appealing to the thug's better nature with a combination of disarming wit and outright lies. Scowling, the thug lowers his knife and apologizes to the doppelganger for the trouble. So if you want to be a sort of diplomancer in this game, that would clearly be the right choice. I think, however, that there's also pairing with the class known as the Jack, the sort of roguish composite in Tides of Numenera. I don't want to play a Jack, I want to play a Nano. So I want to consider the other choices. And let's pick the intelligent doppelganger. Incidentally, I have to highlight this. I don't know why the third option necessarily correlates with playing a glaive, the warrior version class in Tides of Numenera, as all of the doppelgangers have mystical symbols on their brow. But let's point at the intelligent one, since that would seem to pair with a nano. The doppelganger holds itself erect among the passing crowd. It meets your eyes with a confident gaze, triggering familiar memories in the back of your mind. When you return from your contemplation, the doppelganger is waiting for your decision with a knowing smile. I'm keeping an eye on my FPS at the moment, and it's dropping to like 29, and since it was giving me these warnings before about encoding overload, and that's what wrecked the whole first broadcast, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to pause the stream for a moment, just so that I can double check to make sure that it's coming through on your end the way it's supposed to. So forgive me, just 1 minute, and I'll be right back.